Let's study 9th standard ICSE Biology, Chapter 16. Diseases, their cause and control.
Diseases, cause and control. Disease means dis-ease. That means when you are not at ease. The definition is it is a departure from normal health through structural or functional disorder of the body. That is, if you have any kind of disorder, mentally or physically, it seems like you have a disease. The World Health Day is celebrated on April 7. Categories of disease. If we classify diseases on the basis of the extent of occurrence, then there are 4 types. Endemic disease. Such diseases are found only in certain areas, and only a few people are affected by it at a time. For example, yellow fever in certain African countries and goiter in sub-Himalayan regions. In the sub-Himalayan regions, the water is so fresh that there is hardly any salt in it. So because of deficiency of iodine in the water and soil in that area, people suffer from goiter. Then we have epidemic diseases. Here the disease breaks out and spreads from place to place, affecting large numbers of people at the same time. Example, there was a plague in India in 1994, which started in Surat and spread to many places. But if the spread is worldwide, we call it the pandemic. Example, AIDS and even COVID. And then we have sporadic diseases, which are scattered individual cases. Example, malaria and cholera. They happen to individuals anywhere at any time in relatively smaller numbers. Next, if we categorize on the basis of communicability, then they can be non-communicable or communicable, or even called non-infectious or infectious. Non-communicable diseases cannot spread from a patient to another patient because they are not caused by any pathogens, that is germs or worms. Example, diabetes, which is a metabolic disease. Color blindness is a genetic disease. Heart attack is a genetic disease or a lifestyle disease. Beriberi is a nutritional deficiency disease when you have deficiency of vitamin B. Communicable or infectious diseases do spread from person to person because they are caused due to an infection by a pathogen. A pathogen can be a germ or a worm which causes disease. Now, communicable is not the same as contagious. Contagious disease is spread by contact, skin to skin contact. Every contagious disease is communicable, but not vice versa, because there are many ways in which the infection can be communicated or spread. Food, contaminated water, vectors like mosquitoes, through air, and through skin to skin contact. So, when these pathogens enter a person, then the person is said to be infected. But he will not suffer from the diseases immediately. There is an incubation period. For example, if the common cold virus enters your body, you will not get cold immediately. It takes time for that virus to multiply in your body, and then the symptoms start appearing. So this gap between infection and the appearance of the disease's symptoms is called the incubation period, which may last for a few days, a few weeks, or even a few years, depending on the disease. Section 16.4.1 is not in syllabus, as mentioned. Now we have a definition of pathogen here. In this chapter, we are going to study 4 types of pathogens and diseases caused by them in detail. This is the definition of incubation period. Notice how the incubation period varies from disease to disease. For pneumonia, it lasts for just 1 to 3 days, but for AIDS, it may go up to 12 or more years. That means if a person is infected with the HIV, that is a human immunodeficiency virus, he will be HIV positive, but he will not suffer from the symptoms of AIDS for a decade or more. He will get AIDS, the disease, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, only after a decade. Of course, it can be sooner as well. So remember, HIV is the name of a virus and AIDS is the name of the disease. Don't get confused between the two terms. And we need to know the full form, of course, which is mentioned in the textbook. Now let's study the diseases caused by bacteria. There are 3 diseases. It will be easy for us to study them from the table. So we need to know the organism which causes the disease. The incubation period has to be remembered. This table is not so important. Mode of transmission. Well, tuberculosis is spread through air, dust, sputum or spit of the infected person. What are the symptoms of TB? Persistent cough, that is continuous cough. Afternoon fever, bloody mucus when you spit out. Loss of weight, fatigue, tiredness, chest pain, breathlessness. Prevention and cure. Streptomycin antibiotic. It's a cure, not a prevention. BCG vaccination, that's a prevention. And isolation of patient is also prevention for other people. BCG full form is Bacillus of Calmette and Guerin, as mentioned in another chapter. Next, we have cholera. Few hours to 6 days is the incubation period once you get infected. How is it spread? Well, contaminated water, food and drink spread by flies. So what are the symptoms? Acute diarrhea, that is loose motions, vomiting, abdominal pain, dehydration. Of course, if you have loose motions and you vomit, you lose all your water, so there is a shortage of water. And because of that, you have reduced urination, which is quite dangerous. Proper sanitation, prevention, control of flies, avoid exposed food is all prevention. Anti-cholera injection, that's a cure, not a prevention. So in exam, if they ask for prevention, don't write the cure. Typhoid is caused by Salmonella typhi. Incubation period, mode of transmission. Symptoms: high fever rise in the afternoon, acute headache, red nose, reddish eruption on the chest, and diarrhea. Prevention and cure: proper sanitation, chloromycetin antibiotic, that's a cure. Anti-typhoid vaccination, that's a prevention. Vaccination is always done before you suffer from a disease because it builds up your immunity against that disease. Now remember, March 24 is observed as an anti-tuberculosis day, just to spread awareness about it. Next, all this is extra, so it's not in syllabus. Even this table is not in syllabus, but if your teacher insists on you learning some part of it, then do. And if you have any doubts, feel free to communicate with me. Diseases caused by protozoa. So again, we'll study 3 diseases. No table has been formed for these paragraphs, but just underline the key words which I have. It is caused by a protozoa, which is a germ, Plasmodium. It is spread by an infected female Anopheles mosquito. So if one person is suffering from malaria, and if a female Anopheles mosquito sucks the blood from that person, and then she goes on to bite a healthy person, then she would spread this Plasmodium, and then the healthy person will also suffer from malaria. Why do only females bite? Well, they need the blood to lay their eggs. That's why. This is just biology. What happens in malaria? The protozoa, it multiplies in the liver, it destroys the RBCs. Incubation period is 3 weeks. Symptoms? You get a chill and high fever. And what is the cure? Well, there are various drugs such as quinine, paludrin, etc. One drug's name would be enough. And it is commonly found in hot and humid countries near the equator. What are the control measures? Well, get rid of any stagnant water. Use mosquito nets and repellents like Odomos, good night. Next, amoebic dysentery. Since the dysentery is caused by amoeba, it's amoebic dysentery. Some diseases like dysentery are caused by bacteria as well, so that's different. Another name for the disease is amoebiasis, caused by Entamoeba histolytica. No need to get hysterical out of it. The symptoms are diarrhea, pain, and blood in the stools, that is the feces. It is spread due to contaminated food by flies, and the incubation period is 1 week. How should we prevent it? Proper sanitation, protect the food from dust and flies. Sleeping sickness. Sleeping sickness means a person has difficulty in sleeping. On the other hand, if you often feel sleepy throughout the day, that is not sleeping sickness, that is laziness. Sleeping sickness is caused by a protozoa named Trypanosoma brucei gambiense and Trypanosoma brucei rhodesiense. It is spread by the bite of the tsetse fly. T is silent. Symptoms: fever, headache, joint pains, confusion, trouble in sleeping. This is a fatal stage because if you can't sleep for many days, it starts affecting your health badly. Treatment is use drugs like melarsoprolol. Next, diseases caused by parasitic worms. Ascariasis is caused by a worm named Ascaris, also called common roundworm. You may be given a diagram in your school exam and you may be asked to identify the male. Notice that male is always shorter than the female and it has a coiled tail, a curve in the tail. Females don't. So they lay their eggs in the soil, and when the children play in the soil, the eggs, which are very tiny, you can't even see them, stick to their hands. And if they eat food with unwashed hands, or if we eat vegetables without washing them, the eggs enter our body and then we get this disease. There's no information given about symptoms or the incubation period, etc. Tenias is caused by a tapeworm called Taenia solium. They can grow really long in our intestine, and usually it is spread if we eat infected pork and infected beef. Pork is a pig meat and beef is cow or buffalo meat. without cooking them properly, then the eggs which are there in these animals, they will enter our body, they will multiply, they will come out of our feces and mix with the water in the soil and again enter other animals, and the cycle continues. And finally, we have filariasis, also called elephantiasis, caused by a worm Wuchereria bancrofti. Here, it's caused by the bite of a female Culex mosquito. Males never bite. They are gentle always. Symptoms: legs become swollen. That's because the lymph circulation and the lymph vessels and the lymph nodes have been blocked. So they also inflame. Other symptoms are fever with chills. Treatment: we can use antibiotics and anti-inflammatory analgesics, which will reduce the swelling. Also eliminate the vector. What is the vector in this case? The Culex mosquito. Next, what are viruses? Viruses are extremely small substances. I can't even call it a microorganism because it's on the borderline of living and non-living things. You see, it cannot reproduce on its own. It cannot respire, metabolize, multiply on its own at all. It does not have organelles. It's just a piece of protein coating with a piece of RNA or DNA inside it. You can literally crystallize it and store it forever. It does not die because it is not alive. But once it enters a host cell, a living thing, it is activated. It hijacks the cell and orders the cell to make copies of itself. So though it cannot reproduce itself, it can multiply once it is in a host cell. That's its pure function. It has no other function in its life, if I may call it so, simply to make copies of itself. And once there are enough copies, the host cell dies and it spreads to other cells and keeps on multiplying. And the side effect of that is we suffer from a disease, which can be common cold, HIV, AIDS, or any other viral disease, simply because they want to multiply. Another unique thing about them is that they don't have cell membrane, they don't have a nucleus, mitochondria, nothing. Remember, the World Rabies Day is celebrated on 8th September because Louis Pasteur, he successfully established that vaccines work against rabies. He developed a vaccine against rabies. This blue box is cancelled. Let's talk about HIV/AIDS now. It was first detected in USA. Scientists believe that it was common in monkeys and somehow the virus jumped to human beings, and now it's a pandemic going on here. AIDS is the last stage of HIV infection. Just because a person is HIV positive doesn't mean he's suffering from AIDS yet. The virus is HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. It is found in body fluids like blood, semen, saliva, tears, and urine. It attacks our immune system, especially the T cells, and destroys them. That's all it does. But the problem is, if your immune system becomes so weak, then we can die from even common diseases like common cold. So that's why AIDS is a deadly disease. The incubation period can last up to 10 to 12 years. And people with full-blown AIDS actually die because of other infections like tuberculosis or even cancers, because we don't have immunity to fight against them. If you take medicines every day, there are some drugs available today which are quite expensive, then they may live a normal life, a comparatively normal life, for many, many years. The symptoms include swollen lymph nodes, fever, night sweats, and weight loss. But how are they spread? Since they are found in body fluids, sexual intercourse is a common way in which HIV is spreading throughout the world. It is found in the semen of a man and even the vaginal fluid of a woman. Prostitution is a big source of the infection, because in prostitution, people have sexual intercourse with a man or a woman, usually a woman. These are paid services, and that same lady is selling her body, her sexual services, to multiple people. So if even one customer has HIV, then she would catch it, and then she would go on to spread it to many people. That's one of the biggest drawbacks of prostitution, especially when no safety is used like condoms. It is also possible in homosexual intercourse between two men, because even in anal sex, there will be some contact with the body fluid of the other person. Next, contaminated blood transfusion. If there is an emergency blood transfusion without checking the blood for diseases like HIV, then the healthy person who receives the blood transfusion may get infected, especially those who need blood regularly, children suffering from thalassemia, for example. Mother to child transmission is also possible if the mother is HIV positive. The child may also get injection needles. And that's why syringes should be disposed, especially the needles should be disposed after usage, because if they are contaminated from one patient and used on another, the virus spreads. This is how drug abusers get the virus, because they are so desperate and they don't have much money, so they share the syringes, and that is how they get AIDS. The World AIDS Day is celebrated, or rather remembered, on December 1. Chickenpox, that's a common disease caused by a virus called varicella zoster. It's a contagious disease. It is spread by contact. It occurs mostly in children. We get rashes and then blisters, but after some time we become fine. Calamine lotion can help calm the itchiness. There are vaccines available. The vaccine itself has a chickenpox virus, which gives us immunity. And finally, we have hepatitis, which is of various types: hepatitis A, B, C, D, E. The virus causes inflammation of the liver, hence hepat means liver and itis means swelling. It is caused by contaminated food, water, contaminated syringes and blood transfusions. Now let's understand the difference between the various types of hepatitis. Hepatitis A, incubation period 14 to 45 days. Yes, we need to learn all of this. And it is transmitted by contaminated food and water. Whereas B has an incubation period of 6 to 26 weeks and spread by contaminated syringes and transfusion equipment. The word contaminated everywhere is important. We can't just say that hepatitis is caused by syringes. No, only by contaminated syringes. Similarly, we should not say that HIV is spread by sexual intercourse. No, it is spread by having sexual intercourse with an infected person. Now, hepatitis can cause cirrhosis, which is fats in liver, which can later lead to cancer as well. C and D are similar to B. Symptoms are high temperature, headache, joint pains, loss of appetite, even nausea and vomiting. Nausea means feel like vomiting. Then jaundice develops. That means the amount of bile increases, and our urine is yellow, stools are yellow, and even our eye and skin becomes yellowish. Bed rest is the best treatment. I know you would love bed rest. High calorie diet should be consumed because the liver is weak at this stage. It can't digest proteins and fats properly. Spreading of AIDS, remember, AIDS is not spread by coming in contact with the patient's clothes or shaking hands or eating together. So if you know somebody who has AIDS, then we should not ignore them or discriminate against them. How do the viruses differ from bacteria? Well, there are various points. Bacteria are living things. They are made up of cells. Viruses are not made up of cells. They don't have organelles. They can be crystallized. They can't reproduce on their own. So such points have to be learned.
The next disease we are going to talk about is COVID. It is a fairly recent disease, that is coronavirus disease 19, because the first few cases were discovered in 2019 at Wuhan in China. From there, it spread all over the world and it became one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, killing millions of people and debilitating millions more. The causative agent of this disease is a virus, the SARS-CoV-2, that is severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. So it's a variant of coronavirus. We have known coronavirus since decades, but never has it caused such a huge calamity. It mutates, so new varieties are born every now and then. The most destructive ones were the Delta variant and the Omicron variant. Many more variants are being produced as we speak. But fortunately, most of the population seems to have got immune to it currently. The symptoms of this disease are similar to your regular cough and cold: a respiratory blockage, a runny nose, fever, but it may even lead to complications, especially people who have a weak immune or have a history of diseases like diabetes, heart diseases. They can become more severe if they're infected by this disease. Prevention is definitely better than cure in this case because it's pretty straightforward. Wear a mask in public, especially if the epidemic is going on in your area, or if you have cough and cold. Have healthy food, exercise a lot. There's nothing better than your own immune system to fight off. The WHO recommends a list of preventive measures: keeping a safe distance from people, not being in too crowded areas. We should listen to these instructions rather than go for some household remedies or WhatsApp messages which have some cures for this disease. We should listen to only scientific experts. If a WhatsApp message is from a doctor, then we should ask for a link of that particular website. Treatment, currently there is no complete treatment for this. It has to be based on the symptoms of the patient. The best we can do is allow relief and let the immunity take care of it. Research is going on about using the antibodies of some other patients who have recovered to cure somebody who has a weak immunity, but they haven't been so successful yet. So stay safe, stay scientific. Hi students, this is AJ sir. If you like this video, press the like button. If you would like to enroll for my online test series or online lectures, email me or message me on Instagram. Check the description for more information.